Hello, and welcome to the Bitcoin.review podcast, where we explore developments and projects with the people who actually make them happen. The show is supported by Pod 2.0, Sat Streaming, and CoinKite. If you're a new listener, I'm NVK. I run CoinKite, where we've been helping people secure their Bitcoins for over a decade. We make the COLDCARD and fun products like the block clock. You can find more information about it on coinkite.com. Hello, and welcome back to the Bitcoin.review, the show that no one listens to. Welcome back, Mr. Rob Hamilton.
Thanks for having me.
Mr. Odell.
Good to be here.
And the man who ships, Craig.
Yeah, another Bitcoin review. Let's see what's going on in the world. Not much, I think.
That's right. I mean, since this is against my will, I'm gonna put that out there. But Odell wants to address some of the drama of core filters and op return, so we want to hear his opinion.
Oh no, I'll be back in 30 minutes. I'm filtering this out.
I mean, this is fake news. I liked it. What's your opinion?
No. What's your opinion?
My opinion, as I've stated many times on Rabbit Hole Recap, is that the witch hunt element of the op return debate is really disappointing, but kind of unavoidable. I feel like that's just what happens in social. Like that's what social prioritizes. But the bright side to me is that I think the newer people are starting to realize what the key fundamental check on developers is in this ecosystem, which is that all code is open source, that anyone can verify it or modify it without permission, and that ultimately you are in control of what you decide to run, which was kind of lost, I think, on people. That people were starting to get into the flow of like basically auto updates, just clicking update, seeing the bright blue button on their Umbrel or Start9 and just immediately clicking it. And I think now there will be at least more thought in that process. And I think that is probably the single biggest takeaway and single biggest benefit from all of this. Yeah, that's my overarching take. But I'm really curious on your opinion, MVK.
No, but wait, outside of the meta part, what do you actually think about the op return and the filter change?
I think I liked it the way it was. I don't really understand exactly why this is the hill that some people want to die on. It was already configurable. So if you wanted to raise your limit on your own node, you could easily do that. So I know right now it seems like the main PR that is probably will get merged increases the limit, keeps the configuration, and marks it deprecated, which probably means that they're just going to remove the option in the next release.
There is some discussion about the meaning of deprecation, but...
Yeah, exactly. Now everyone's arguing about the semantics of what deprecation means, which is incredibly productive. But I think ultimately, I want to see node operators have more options, not less. I think ideally we see as many people run nodes to interact with the network in a trust minimized way. But the core of the network will always be like a hardcore ride or die type of class, I think. And for those people, I think we should have more options, not less. Like, I don't think we should be treating them like grandmas. I think we should be expecting them to be practicing personal responsibility and be more educated on the situations. And so, like, give them more sovereignty, give them more agency, not less, going forward would be better.
You're spot on in some things there. I mean, reality is most people, there's now people are trying to dunk on core, on knots as well. And most people don't even check the binary signature of the core client they download from a website and just run it. They have no idea what they're doing. And also running a node doesn't mean anything unless you actually have economical capacity going through that node. So let's move on to Craig. Do you want to voice some opinions on the topic as well?
Yeah, I mean, I concur with the sort of meta thoughts. And, it's really nice to see people caring on the good side about running nodes. Like if this is what it takes to get people to care about running nodes, well, that's, I guess, a good thing. But, if I was to look at the whole, how important is this issue on the grand scheme of things, it feels to me a bit like people are looking to cross a road at a zebra crossing, and they're wondering about whether they should walk on the black parts or the white parts while a bus is bearing down on them. And that bus is really this court case we have, Samurai Wallet. We have a court case which will decide the ability whether we can run nodes or not, certainly in the United States. And it just seems like that is a more important, like if I could see 10% of the outrage directed towards the op return issue on that particular issue, that would be good. But, that's obviously a lot of nuance and complexity and legal arguments. So you don't see it. But for me, that is a far more critical issue right now than how much data can be placed in an op return.
I think you touched a few points there, very important. And my sentiment around this is starting to become very bearish on some aspects of the core. It feels like a lot of work is make work. A lot of this shit is completely unnecessary. And we have a lot of bigger fish to fry. But because people can't do big things like covenants or whatever, they sort of like start arguing about the little things. Maybe there's just too much philanthropic money in Bitcoin. Like it's just too many people working and people need some shit to do. And now they want to change shit that doesn't need to be changed. I mean, could we maybe improve some fee estimation with this? Maybe, does it actually move the needle on Bitcoin advancement? Fuck no, it doesn't. Does it cause a lot of like grievances and issues and, people quitting Twitter and all kinds of shit? Definitely. So it seems to me like the make work caused by too much money that is not economically market-based is causing a lot of, noise. While, we have the Samurai case and there's a bunch of other things of similar importance going on that nobody gives a fuck. But, like Odell said, at least people are arguing about nodes and learning how to run a node. I do think we do need more distros. I think a little bit more competition to see who makes the official, unofficial release of core is important. I think DFIing core developers is terrible. It's terrible for them. And I bet most of them don't like it.
Yeah.
I think we have too much of this theatric, we're so grateful for their work. They're fucking saints and this and that. It's just too much, man. We need to tone it down. Like, it's not a simple issue. Mr. Rob.
At a very high level, I'll just say that my personal perspective is on removing the restriction for the op return. That's a longer conversation outside the Metacore governance. Yeah. And for me, there's almost like two discussions, right? There's like at the protocol level, understanding this proposed change versus the meta discussion on how Bitcoin governance works. I think the one on the meta discussion is a lot messier in trying to untangle. I'd agree. It's funny because my initial gut reaction is we need competing implementations like Ethereum. But the difference here is that the nature of Bitcoin consensus code is that it's pretty well understood. And even something like Knots, which does a couple policy changes, to my understanding and knowledge, doesn't do a consensus change for anything, right? It's all policy.cp files and all of these extra things and adding features. I personally run core. My company AnchorWatch runs core. I think if you're looking at alternate implementations, there's certain developer operations hygiene that needs to start being looked at. Like Luke just direct rips from his local into master and like makes releases. There's this thing called GUIX, which used to be the Gideon signature chain. And so you have like 15, 20, it's like somewhere between 12 and like 20 different developers on core. When a new release gets made, they all build it on their own separate machines and sign with their PGP key that, hey, this is the exact binary I got to. For Knots, it's Luke and like 3 other people, and 2 of them, I think, work at Ocean, right? So like it's not the same level of distributed people that are like not trusting verifying. I know NVK opened up with most people aren't checking signatures. I'm one of the people that do, right? I'm also like
liar.
And there's levels of checking it, right? There's doing the full deterministic reproducible build and checking the signature chains of the devs, and there's also just checking the signed binary, right? Like there's levels to how deep you want to go down that rabbit hole. I don't think a lot of the current crew of the core devs they're not used to having this much public attention on them from a wider circle. I noticed that Gmax came out of his retirement or whatever to come comment on the pull request, voicing his support and basically saying, I haven't seen a good argument yet in this pull request, and if they want to come forward, I'll deconstruct those arguments. I haven't seen people responding to him yet, but I think it's interesting to see him kind of come out and trying to firm up structure from Bitcoin as a software project. But it's messy. It's really messy. The beautiful thing about Bitcoin too is unless you're using actually nothing in this new release so far, you could just run version 29 for a long time.
You should be really running version 21, but that's a different story.
21 is when Taproot got activated.
Was it SegWit was 14, right?
SegWit was 14.
Yeah, no, you can roll back to 14, I think. Yeah.
You could. You wouldn't be enforcing the consensus rules on your node for receiving money. But the other part of this, too, is just the nature of the miners, right? And there's a difference between consensus rules and policy. And you only need 5 to 10% of the network to enforce a policy rule for it to be effective across the network.
Most miners don't run core spec. They run patches of core because they have all of them have their special needs.
Mm-hmm.
So we already have distros in a way of core at the most, at the largest hash rates.
Yeah.
I think ephemeral core group wanted to de-escalate and lower the temperature. I would highly recommend releasing more distros, binaries complete with different options on them. I know it's very counter to the engineer mindset to have different sort of releases when it comes to software like this, but maybe it helps go somewhere. I mean, if it wasn't for Shaolin Fry, we wouldn't have a UASF release, right? I think it's important, and it helps people also have an escape valve, right, for the pressure. I think, and also belittling the users, it's not a great way of attacking this problem. There's a lot of users out there that are big economic actors in this space.
Yeah.
They may sound retarded on Twitter, but it doesn't make them small hodlers either.
You're talking about Mr. Hodl, right?
Actually, Mr. Hodl is pro change.
He wants fork airdrops.
Yes, airdrops, please.
I mean, I have another question on that tangent for you guys. I mean, I'm also pro competing implementations. Once again, just more choice, the better. As long as the consensus code is sacred, right?
That's the risk, Matt.
I know, but try not to fuck with that too much. But with all that said, do you guys think the chances we see a successful soft fork of any of the current proposals has pretty much gone to zero at this point?
I don't know. I just won my airdrop.
I disagree.
I don't know. I think, once we're in a world where the Bitcoin kernel is a thing, where it actually exists, I think that is a different world from today. I think we're going to see what NVK is asking for. We're going to see a lot of different flavors of Bitcoin built on Bitcoin kernel coming out. I'd love to see a flavor which has an address index in it, for example. That would be great.
Yes.
So people didn't have to install Bitcoin Core and an Electrum server just to get going. Wouldn't it be great if we just had one installation? That would be something that users actually want.
Well, imagine if people were working on that instead of arguing about filters.
Right.
Exactly, right? And that, to be fair, there's many Bitcoin Core devs who are working on the Bitcoin kernel, and they want this as well, right? They want to have this.
Yeah.
So it's not like it's being pushed back on, but it is hard to do. From what I understand, it is moving forward. It's a many-year effort that is gradually moving forward. There are people working on it, but that's the day that I'm looking forward to.
Okay. Is there anything else on this topic that is worth addressing, or should we move on with our lives?
Most of it's been said at this point.
Yeah, I agree with Craig. So the libitcoin kernel is the idea of separating the consensus from everything else so that you can safely build out these other implementations. That makes sense to me. Now, my point is on these current soft fork proposals, the amount of contention we've seen over a policy change, which is not consensus based and can be overridden by sending transactions directly to miners already. How do you see something like CTV actually successfully getting pushed through?
No. See, that's a monumental consensus change, Matt. And depending how it's done, it could even be a hard fork.
But that's my point.
No. Well, I think the only thing you're going to end up seeing is the soft consensus soy standardness things being changed and also additional features or other things that are non-related to consensus. If you change consensus, you fork.
I think I would take the other side of that insofar as even for policy things, if this PR gets merged, even with all this hullabaloo and all this stuff, like the maintainers have acted, GMAX has come out of the woods to act it, like and all of the graybeards in Bitcoin are for the PR being merged as a policy thing right now, right?
Well, but like I really don't like this idea of just blindly trusting people too, because GMAX too doesn't believe in hardware wallets. Like everybody in this space, has massive blind sides, right? Like, and like folks have been, he's been busy in BSV forums trolling that for the last 5 years.
That is a good retirement, though. If you tell me my retirement was I get to troll BSVers on Reddit, like that's a pretty good gig.
Sure. I still think that the best course of action here is just stop upgrading. That's it. It really is that simple. You can wait out a lot of this insanity bullshit by just not updating. Honestly, Matt, as much as I want to see CTV, we're not going to see it. It's not going to happen. We're essentially ossified.
No, that's my point. I agree with you, but Rob doesn't, which I think there's a lot of people still in denial here. Those people can end up hard forking if they want to.
It'd be a soft fork to start. It wouldn't be a hard fork. You don't have to do a hard fork to use opt success. We designed TypeScript explicitly to not have to be hard forks to add new things.
I need to see the implementation before we...
Yeah. I mean, hard fork, soft fork, for those that are still awake, is a different distinction in a loosening versus a tightening of the consensus rules.
Yes.
And Taproot was explicitly designed around using what's called opt success. So their opcode's if you see opt success, you can just automatically spend it, right? And then a soft fork in the future say, hey, instead of anyone can spend it, it's now this subset of behavior, whether it's CTV, checksig from stack, whatever it is. I think in the order of operations to actually have a fork is you need to have an activation client. One step back from an activation client, you're going to want people who are showing that they're able to, with this proposed activation client, using either Inquisition or Signet, hey, these are the things that we can do. I don't think that stuff is dead. I don't understand why it would be dead because people are upset about JPEGs. And if anything, then that's a really rough spot where you can get psyoped into making Bitcoin worse money because people are peeing in your mempool. We're worried about nation state attacks and you literally can get trolled by people on the internet into just making Bitcoin worse money.
Yeah.
I think it's easy to look at this op return thing and think it the way everything is going to go. But look, there were a highly motivated and very vocal opposition to this change. That's not always going to be the case for every soft fork. We know that there are certain changes, consensus changes that have to happen because of bugs that currently exist and will occur in the future. So, we're going to have to get to that point at some point in the future.
But there's only Unix timecode.
Well, it still exists.
Unix.
The point is that, I think we shouldn't read too much into it. Spam is this very emotive issue. People hate spam. They get all upset about it. It is one of those issues. I'm not saying that CTV doesn't have other things, but I don't actually know of any vocal groups right now who are opposed to it. There's more just a general...
Core is opposed to CTV, pretty much.
Well, I think that they're just not convinced. I wouldn't say they're opposed. They're just not convinced.
Yeah, I don't think they're opposed. And there was actually some good discussion at OpNext around maybe CTV. You only put it in TapScript. You can make it even simpler of an upgrade if you don't have to worry about legacy script anymore. Make it Taproot only, right? People were kind of walking through and kind of iterating this out. And I think also from a coalition standpoint, the BitVM cohort realized that they can use CTV to cut down and make it a lot more efficient, right? So that was someone that was we don't need anything, or if anything, TX hash. I think coalition building is a slow thing that develops over time. I think it's wrong to say, looking at things today, that it will never change again. That's a timeline and horizon that we can't be too sure. On the flip side, me to say definitely something's going to happen would be way too premature on the other side of it. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how Bitcoin continues to develop. I want Bitcoin to keep on improving, whether that's within current consensus rules or over time being thoughtful about adding new features like we've done before. But I don't think the history's set in stone yet.
I guess we can all agree that we're all optimistic on number go up, at least.
Yeah, no one's doubting that.
There we go.
Rob, can you just walk through how we've never seen a contentious soft fork attempted to be pushed through on Bitcoin before? Have you, like, Taproot was like easy breezy. SegWit was like the people that were on this side of the hard fork were pretty agreed to it.
Yeah, they were the soft fork for SegWit. We were the hard fork.
Okay, so imagine a scenario where 50% of the hash rate, nice round number, decides to run an activation client for a soft fork that most people don't want, and the network responds to that. How does that look? What happens in that situation?
If you had 50% of the hash rate choose to activate something, you would have the other 50% not enforcing it. And so what would happen is the first block that used an upgrade, like walking you through the first block where there was a behavior where, let's say I use CTV for something. Let's say I put 1,000 Bitcoin in the CTV address and I go and spend it. There would be a fork with 50% of the hash rate that would say, that's CTV, so you can only spend it X, Y, and Z way. The other fork with the other 50% hash rate would be like, this fucking idiot, he just put his money in an anyone can spend address, and they would just steal it, right? They would just instantly steal it. And then a new block would get found by the half that took the coins, and then the other nodes would reject that, being like, no, you violated the rule that we're enforcing. And then you would have a chain split.
You'd have a hard fork.
Well, it's not a hard fork, it's a chain split. Welcome to Bitcoin.review. Yeah, this is a chain split, not a hard fork.
Yeah, sure. It's a what is it? A transitory chain, whatever you want to call it. Anyways.
I mean, if anyone's going to get pedantic about the definitions and technically actually, it's Bitcoin.review. If you want the higher level summary, you can go to other podcasts that kind of do list shows.
Anyways. All right. Should we get on to software updates? We can take other tangents as we go. COLDCARD, we released a small, lots of bug fixes today. Nothing too interesting, but bug fixes nonetheless. BDK version 0.22.0 improved syncing experience for Electrum and Explorer. Relevant transactions that are missing can now be evicted with the help of Sync Request Builder and a few other things. Cove Wallet version 0.4.0 support for imported wallets with key expressions, add support for using Cove with Crux, create CSV file with transactions with fiat values for each transaction, time transaction, useful for taxable reporting. So Cove is doing very well. We should be coming out of beta very soon. I keep on banging on this project. Please go join the test flight, give feedback. Mm-hmm. This project is awesome. It's the simple but real, like phone wallet that we needed.
Steve Myers did a really great demo last night at Nash BitDev showing the tap signer integration. It was a huge hit. It's a clean UX, works really nicely. And the Cove Wallet, like I think you described it before this way, NVK, is this like your basic layer one, just like boomer on-chain Bitcoin wallet. And it's clean, minimal, it's good.
Yeah, it's the phone wallet we can send people to. The seed-based, and it doesn't have lightning sort of complexities on it. Mm-hmm. I think it's much needed.
It's Sparrow Wallet for mobile.
There you go. No, it doesn't have all the tools. That's the whole point.
Yeah. Can you do coin control on that? Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, you can? Oh, there you go.
I don't know if it's out or coming, but kind of. Yes, soon.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you can't put a desktop screen on a phone, but, it's just can't be done. Not yet, anyway.
Yeah. What else? BTCPay Server updated. Nunchuk version 1.68 updated for Android. Bitcoin Keeper updated. Bitcoin Safe updated. Let's see if there is anything super big deal here. Wasabi Wallet version 2.6.0. They added 158 block filters. Can now synchronize with BIP158 without requiring a backend indexer. That's nice.
Mm-hmm.
So they actually always used BIP158 filter. So I wasn't aware of the need for an indexer before. I think they are the only wallet that uses BIP158, like actual wallet, like as opposed to a Lightning node like LND or whatever. Mm-hmm. But I'm probably wrong. But maybe someone else knows of a different one.
I don't know. I think they were bundling something before.
Zeus uses it.
Okay.
Nice.
Yeah, that's right. I actually listened to your pod with
Evan.
Evan, thank you. And he said that there were some performance issues, which I understand because it is quite a heavy protocol to try and sync with. I mean, it's great from a privacy point of view, definitely well thought out there, but has challenges. And that's always an issue for the user experience because everyone just expects everything to happen instantly. And if you don't think that's true, then try and sit down with somebody and introduce them to Bitcoin with a wallet that uses BIP 158 filters. It's a very different experience.
Yeah. Again, if only Core could have an indexer. RoboSats version 0.77 updated. Umbrel version 1.4.1. File search. UI. Anything here interesting? Zaprite added Taproot support and payment profiles. Orders export. Add CSV support for future orders. Unchained SegWit vaults. Add support for Unchained's new SegWit vaults. Wait, Unchained now supports SegWit? Or is that? I don't know.
Unchained's new SegWit vaults.
Yeah. Blockstream Satellite version 2.5.1. It's nice that Starlink has a little competition still on running nodes remotely. Installation of GRDVBS2 RX on Debian Bookworm. User addition to video group configuration, TBS USB receiver. And they changed a few other things. Stratum Work. Add page that displays full block template data as parsed from mining.notify message for each pool. And a few other changes. SeedHammer. Open source hardware design files for SeedHammer II machine released. They integrated NFC. It's pretty cool. It's going to come out soon.
Nice.
ESP-Miner version 2.7.0. Improve AP mode stability for stopping a bunch of updates. That's the Loto mining. Man, people are too busy arguing, not shipping enough. This list is too short there for Bitcoin. It's all a PSYOP. Project Spotlight, Bitcoin Feature Matrix, a tool to track interoperability of Bitcoin products and services.
Oh, look at that.
Another SACP 256K1 lab, another implementation, an insecure implementation related to blah, 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 written in Python, intended for prototyping, experimentation, education.
That's cool. Wouldn't use it for real money, but just to click around and do some stuff. Why not? GPGap, air gap, GPG signing, Bitcoin style. Oh yeah, this is, so you can now do GPG signing on crooks, which is really cool. Very cool.
Yeah, awesome use for that. What is this, Shoni?
Oh.
NVK Validation Tweet, a cooked demo response for a Bitcoin Rust script for testing data on Signet.
I heard about this. Yeah, Portland Huddle, you're asking him to basically, you threw out a challenge to make some mock data, and then he said you could just use BDK for this.
I also vibe coded a transaction generator that creates multi-chained transactions and consolidations.
Yeah.
I posted, I think, on my GitHub. Untested, of course, because, vibe coding is great for doing the code, not testing the code. BriberBrother, an alternative mempool to help Bitcoin miners identify and include non-standard transactions that follow consensus rules but aren't typically relayed through the P2P network.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking at it.
StackMath, the Bitcoin modeling engine. Nomad build. Self-sovereign Bitcoin Axe firmware builder and flash shares. Man, the BitAxe shit show has been interesting. So apparently when you buy hardware from them, please, guys, don't get mad at me if I get this wrong, okay? The two people listening. So as I understand, when you buy hardware from them, you pay a mandatory donation to Osmo, which is their open source little foundation or something. It's a mandatory donation, which is, guys, if you really want to generate hate, have a mandatory donation. Just embed it on the cost of the product. Like it's what a shit show. Making false hardware, man, is tricky, and everybody eventually finds that out. Hash command, an Electrum application for controlling Bitcoin miners, the local network, mainly BitAx ESP-Miner devices. All right. Vulnerability disclosures. So CVE 2024-52919, remote crash due to address message spam part disclosure. This is on Bitcoin Core.
Version 22.
Yeah. Which you can still run, okay? Like all the Bitcoin attacks, like a Bitcoin Core CVEs and things that people keep on like crying about and thinking it's like the end of the world, they're all just things that can just crash your node. Like that's it.
I would say probably if you are an individual deep cold storage, you have your node to like have your copy of the blockchain if you need to spend.
Makes nothing
less of a concern. If you're a business, you don't want to have your node go offline. Maybe more problems there, right? And that kind of like if your node needs to be on all the time because you're serving customers blockchain data.
I still don't fully buy that because I have a bunch of old nodes running out there and nobody have taken them down. So it's great that people find these vulnerabilities and we fixed it.
I mean, you definitely do agree with Rob, though, that there are certain situations in business operations where you don't want the chance of your node going down.
Oh, absolutely. But here's the thing, right? When you have like mission critical infrastructure, updating that mission critical infrastructure introduces new unknowns. And, normally if it's working, don't mess with it, goes a long way in business infrastructure. So updating business infrastructure is not that simple. And updating nodes for miners is also not that simple. So it's tricky.
So guys, there's a challenge out there. Find NVK's nodes and take them down.
Thanks, Craig.
I wasn't going to say it, but I was thinking it. So, but no one's awake at this point of the show anyway.
Nobody listens to the show.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, I think that there is a lot of truth to the fact that the majority of people are safe so long as there are some people who upgrade.
Yes.
There's just this kind of, because it makes the sort of, is it worthwhile for me to develop an attack around this so much less interesting if you know that, not only can the attack be mitigated with a simple upgrade, but chances are the person that you're going to attack has upgraded anyway. It kind of just like, oh, well, I might as well not even bother. So I think we all benefit even if we don't upgrade.
Yep. It is a version of herd immunity. Just to make a little bit more contentious. CV 2025-43707. Critical bug in Rust miniscript library causes transaction signing crashes.
Yep. So this was an interesting corner case with some uses of descriptors the Wizard Sardine guys stumbled across. There's a blog post in the show notes for those out there who want to go read it. In short, if you set a threshold condition, which means you're typically doing keys and time locks and hash locks, you're doing something more than just only keys because that uses the multi-argument for like multi-sig, but the threshold argument anyway. With threshold, if you said 3 conditions and it was a 3 of 3 conditions, it would cause, on some corner cases, for the compiler to crash. It wasn't really a money-losing bug in the sense that once this is patched, if you made money there and set it all up, it wouldn't be an issue. It didn't impact us at Anchorwatch at all. And that didn't impact the Wizard Sardine guys either because they were just trying to test and work on new things. But yeah, it's always good just to...
Yeah, guys, on that note, like we really need more testing on miniscript.
Yeah. This is actually the compiler too. This wasn't even like the signing stuff. This is just like making of the descriptor. So it's all upstream from wallet software and core. The miniscript compiler is basically what takes your high-level semantic policy language of conceptually what you want to secure your money with and puts it into Bitcoin script with an output descriptor and like the actual encoding of the vault and all the PSVTs and all that information. That in-between translation is where this got pinched. And so you want to be doing more testing. Absolutely. We do a lot of strict sanity checking and very strong opinions on the stuff that we're using in production. We put a lot of testing and effort and work into it. Yeah. So more testing, always welcome.
Hackers breach LockBit, ransomware, gang, dark web affiliate panels. Fuck, I feel like I'm reading like an AI summary of something here. Exposing nearly 60,000 Bitcoin wallet addresses and 4,400 negotiated messages between attackers and victims. Okay. All right. Audience questions. It's all Johnny here asking op return shit, I'm pretty sure. What's the difference between testnet and signet? And what are the benefits of each? Okay, well, that's a good one. Rob, do you want to take it?
So testnet and its forms of testnet 3 and testnet 4, they are basically almost identical to the main Bitcoin network. And this is most impactful for mining. So on testnet 3 and 4, you actually can point your ASICs or your bit axes or whatever, and you can point your hash there, and it allows you, it's of most use to miners because it allows them to know, hey, if I plug in my hash rate, like is my pool configured correctly, allows you to make sure, maybe if you're like hypothetically Marathon and you wanted to make some non-standard blocks and you want to be like, hey, does my code allow garbage in that forks the network? Like you can do it in a sandbox environment with a much lower hash rate to test things out. Signet, sig means for signature, is instead of there being proof of work mining, there is a team of developers who at a Poisson distribution of like how often blocks get found will sign a message, and that signature acts as a valid proof of work block and to make more coins. And so in that sense, testnet's more egalitarian in that like anyone can bind there and do whatever the heck they want. And signet is, more controlled for making sure that they able to like actually see things, right? They're able to make sure that my transaction is going to get confirmed in a regular manner. You're not going to be able to mine the block yourself, but Signet is definitely the go-to place if you're testing any reliable application. And there's forks of this too, like MutinyNet, which does blocks every 30 seconds. You can fork and make your own Signet if you want to do your own things. Also, testnet, since it is adversarial and anyone can mine, people love to be dicks all the time and like reorg the chain. And you know why? Because they can. You really don't need a better reason than that. People with, a couple $100 and, hash power are just kind of dicking around and reorging blocks, which is actually kind of nice for testing the Bitcoin consensus code and what reorgs look like, right? It happens all the time on testnet. So that's a high level summary between the two.
Thank you, Rob. Can you explain in simple terms what op check contract verify does?
Is this also for me?
It's up to you.
From what I understand of check contract verify, I haven't done much direct look into it. I think the BIP just got merged.
Yeah, I don't know this yet.
It's brand new. So Salvatore over at Ledger built this out. And it's basically a high level concept where you can commit to doing more advanced contracts. If we get something like an op vault, it's probably more likely to be a CTV plus check contract verify than an op vault. That's just like because op vault is very narrowly focused on the vaulting of the coins, whereas check contract verify does that and many other things. So it's a more general purpose application for enforcing coins, like only spend coins if this transaction has this kind of output, basically allowing more general frameworks for how money gets moved around. I don't want to give you a more detailed example of that because I haven't done the research myself, but it's a more generalizing contract system, recurring payments, multiple step enforcement to move money around, all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I've been out of the loop. Once the discussions got more interesting on the mailing list, I turned off the mailing list. Like I normally just check out when those things start to happen.
I think we're years and years away from that being more fleshed out.
Yeah. Okay. The last question we already talked in the beginning of the.
Yeah, I mean, still, it's interesting to see how, over time, these proposals get better. I mean, the guy who proposed op vault is now saying that op CCV is better, is a better replacement.
That's James O'Byrne.
Yep.
Yeah. So, isn't that an interesting indication of how taking your time over these things is actually potentially beneficial?
There is a lot of market demand for it.
And CTV has been there for 5 years and no one's come up with something better yet. So it's every day that CTV hangs around and no one's come up with a better way of going about this is adding to the Lindy effect. And there's a 5 Bitcoin bug bounty if someone finds a bug in CTV, too, that's been sitting there for years. No one's found a break in it yet. I'd agree, though, Craig, that letting the stuff sit down, marinate, have time does a lot for speaking to the strength of, battle testing things and seeing if people can revisit primitives and do it even better.
Yeah. Well, I mean, at least we can change BIPs now.
That's right.
Yeah.
All right. Other software. Let's see here. Anything here you guys want to talk about?
SimpleX update? I haven't checked out SimpleX yet. I've heard good things about them.
I mean, really, all I wanted to do is really talk to Craig about the features I've requested. And
is this Sparrow.review now?
Yeah, exactly. And how does he feel about some of my requests?
Well, go ahead, man. Go ahead. Let's talk.
Okay. I mean, it was like some simple stuff, like adding a total of Bitcoin on the send to multi output because we don't have a total there. So let's see how many acts I get on this panel. Odell is shaking his
act.
Okay.
Act.
Good to hear.
That'd be really helpful for OpenSats.
Yes. Another one is the thing that you wanted to wait for Core to ever do, which is I wanted to map out. So you can I want essentially like when you migrate from one wallet to another, I want to migrate UTXO mapping so that you don't make a send everything into a new UTXO. Like you create it just imitates the same mapping and transfers them.
Yeah.
It doesn't. The timing of the transaction needs to be okay, but it doesn't have to be anything crazy. It could just say, hey, randomly pick times within a week, and it's like, fuck it, good enough.
Timing analysis.
And I just keep Sparrow running because Core is not going to do this server side for at least another 50 years.
Yeah, I know, but yeah, agreed. It's definitely something I want to do. For sure.
All right. And my latest feature request was a key teleport. I bumped into this issue twice already since I added the feature. I was helping somebody recover their funds and they needed a way to send me their private key. So it'd be really nice to just receive that straight into Sparrow. So I don't have never clear text with me because it was a remote thing. And so I had to explain how to set up PGP on a fucking clean machine. It was a fucking disaster.
Sounds painful.
Oh, it was very painful because they were anyways. So that was the other one. I think that's it. You've included a lot of my requests, so very helpful.
Did you look into that bug that I found? It's not I guess bug, maybe not. So I'll tell the full story. So on Signet, it's hard to get coins at times. So AJ Towns, who's one of the Signet developers, has something where you basically run proof of work mining on your computer for Bitcoin Inquisition. And then when you do enough, every Signet block, he gives coins out as like a faucet. And I had that running on a server for a couple days. And the problem is every block you get a couple UTXOs. So all of a sudden I had thousands of UTXOs in my Sparrow wallet for my Signet Sparrow wallet. And it wouldn't let me send because it wasn't syncing up all the way to the end of the chain state. And so I had to actually load up Bitcoin Core because Bitcoin Core let me actually move the thousands of UTXOs to do consolidation. And then once I consolidate everything, Sparrow's working fine again. I sent you the links to that. I gave you the seed phrase too, so you could see it on your side. I could probably replicate it and set it up again if you want to go take a spin on that. It's probably an edge case, but it was thousands of UTXOs. And then it would refuse to sync to let me actually be able to spend transactions.
Yeah, I didn't actually get a chance to look at that. Sorry, Rob.
All good.
But it might be a server issue because what the server has to do is get the history of those particular addresses, and that might just be falling over on that.
That's a good point. It may have entirely been server side. Okay.
Did you try and connect Sparrow to Bitcoin Core?
I did not, but I should have done that.
Yeah.
I could do that next time. I may actually just turn on the server again and dust myself, a couple hundred Signet sats over thousands of UTXOs, and then give that a go and see if I can fix it if I just directly connect to Core.
Yeah, typically the client is not the one who has to bear the heavy burden there. It's actually usually the server that does. And the server is typically the one that tends to fall over in those kind of situations.
Here's trivia for NVK and Odell. Do you guys know what Cormorant is?
Yeah. You mean the bird?
No.
So when you connect your Sparrow to a Bitcoin Core node, it creates a wallet called Cormorant. So your Bitcoin node actually adds a wallet called Cormorant, and that's how Sparrow does its handshake connection and does operations. See?
He loves the bird references.
Yeah, well, this is like a little Easter egg for people who are actually doing stuff,
Yeah. No, it's actually the name of the library. So it's like a library inside Sparrow, which is very much like EPS or BWT, if you've ever heard of those, and basically uses Bitcoin Core's wallet functionality as a backend. So Bitcoin Core's wallet is actually scanning the chain, adding transactions that are relevant to the wallet, and then Sparrow is then, through Cormorant, querying that Bitcoin Core wallet called Cormorant in order to get the transactions. So
there you go.
It's a tried and tested path.
Great.
Until we have an address index in Bitcoin Core, it's a decent path to use.
Craig, have you ever thought about just bringing the indexer inside of Sparrow?
Yeah, I have.
Because, like every time you depend on Core, might as well it's always like that. It's like, For sure. But you don't want to, you want to be able to close Sparrow. It's like it should be a cold wallet. Yes.
So you don't want to try and make clients into servers and servers into clients. Like there's a reason that we have a client-server architecture. It kind of works well, and from like a user experience point of view, from an engineering point of view, it all works well. And then also these address index servers, these Electrum servers, like they require a lot of work. They're not easy to write.
Yeah.
And we've had many people, like there's actually many more of them than you might imagine. There's so many abandoned attempts at writing an Electrum server. If you go and dig around on GitHub, I still find one every few months or so. Somebody tried. The reality is that they are not easy to write. That's probably why the core devs chose not to try and make one, even though I think that was the wrong choice, because they just aren't that easy to do.
But that's where it should be.
Yeah, absolutely. That is where it should be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, plus you'd be like indexing data locally, right? It's a lot nicer.
Yeah. I mean, I think we can agree in hindsight, perhaps, and there are arguments for and against, but in hindsight, it would have been better taking the effort spent on the Bitcoin Core wallet and putting that into an address index.
Just open an issue on Core.
Absolutely.
All right. Software releases and project updates here for Nostr. Just the Nostr messaging layer security MLS library released. That's awesome. That's been released because we desperately need that. For other people trying to do Bitcoin things on Nostr, don't, unless you use something like MLS. It's the wrong carrier, guys, to do privacy things, unless you use something like MLS.
Yeah, I mean, even with MLS, like, you are putting sensitive data. I assume it's sensitive, otherwise you wouldn't encrypt it. You're putting sensitive data onto a server. That server has no deletion policy, certainly no deletion policy you have any control over. And what happens in 10 years, 15, 20 years when we live in a post-quantum world, those messages that you sent are now open for anyone to read. And people will read them.
Yeah.
They will be fed into some AI and information will come out. So, it's just a better world where you don't have data that can be hacked versus a world where you have data that can be hacked. That's how I see it.
This is a huge reason why we've always told people, don't upload your COLDCARD backup file into the cloud or a computer. Keep it on the microSD, because you just never know tomorrow. Like that encryption one day could be broken and that data would be available, right? Now, if that backup file is buried somewhere, it would just probably be forgotten and be mowed with the lawn, right? Like, so yes, always think about forward privacy. It's not what privacy can do to you today. Anyways, next, Primal got updated, Damus got updated. Oh, by the way, back to a little bit, I was giving Tidwell some friendly fire. I have a massive gripe with that website, with the Stalkers News or something like that. Like, you have to pay to post, you have to pay to reply, and it's a walled garden. I do not understand why people post there. To do that, post on Twitter. At least there's like a large audience. Like that thing, wasn't like that guy going to migrate that thing to Nostr or something and that never happened?
Keon, right? It's his name?
Yes.
I'm no one to tell him what to do, but it's just like we don't need more walled gardens.
It's weird that it's not Nostr, that they're not Nostr events.
Well, I mean, like people want to make a business, and like I understand in that sense. He wants to own the information.
Yeah, he doesn't want to give up his network effect.
Yes, which it's not going to go anywhere either. Like
You didn't used to have to pay to post. You have to pay to post now. I haven't used it basically since Nostr came out.
Or you have to pay to reply or something like that. Anyways, don't like it.
That was just very random.
No, it's because it's the price. So the problem is a lot of people joined Nostr a year ago, 2 years ago, on a different client that didn't work, and then they all get set up wrong, and then they hate Nostr, right? And then I have to get them to go on Primo and try Primo, and then they go like, "Oh, this actually works," and then they have to clean up their relay list, and then, anyways.
Yeah, I think that's our biggest issue. It's been pretty frustrating to see the lack of Bitcoiner usage of Nostr. And I think the single biggest issue is that a lot of Bitcoiners had a first touch with Nostr. It was not stable, and they haven't come back and tried again. And that's a hard hurdle to beat. It's hard enough getting someone to try something for the first time, but when their first touch is a bad touch point,
Yes,
it's even harder to get them back.
Bad touch. I've told Million many times, that's the founder of Primo, that we really need like some good reply sort of UI for long form posts, because all the keyboard warriors like the Reddit or Hacker News format of like writing a lot and all the stuff being displayed in this horrible trees. And these horrible trees is what promotes keyboard warring, which is what the users want. They don't want to win; they want to be right? So they just keep on fucking like going and doing that. Gmax, for example, huge fan of that format. That's why he's on Reddit still. So, anyways, Million, if you're listening, please add the keyboard warrior mode for a long form posts, and I think maybe we can get some of that discussion moving over to Nostr. It's of huge importance in history keeping that we have Bitcoin discussions on open protocols the same way that the money is open. And hopefully we remove the Nostr derangement syndrome from so many Bitcoiners. That rant is over. Kyoto. Okay, a bunch of other stuff here. What else, guys? Is there anything that we have to fix on my house? Any of the things that we make that is of a way you guys don't like? Because I'm also happy to take some flack because you guys are all users.
Immediately, nothing comes.
Can you make it so the block clocks update quicker?
Yeah.
I know it kills the e-ink screen, but like I'm my own, like I should be able to practice personal responsibility and kill my e-ink screen quicker.
I don't know, man. Then people fucking contact support and it's like, oh, my digits are dead. And then it's a tricky one. Maybe if we add something that like requires some proof of work in order to get in there and change the setting.
You need Edge firmware for the block clock.
There you go.
Yeah, give me Edge firmware with 30-second updates.
30 seconds, okay.
Sounds high time preference, Matt.
That's fine. I mean,
it's just for the fee rate.
It's just the block height. Every 30 seconds, you're just refreshing the block height.
It's gonna listen. This is good for my bottom line. People are gonna have to buy more clocks because they're gonna queue the digits. It's just I'm trying to avoid that. But okay, 30-second updates on the clock format. Okay, noted.
Not directly you guys, but we were talking about this last night. The Sats card. What's the best wallet to use with the Sats card right now that you would recommend?
So Nunchuk is pretty good.
Okay.
I think Cove might have support soon.
Okay.
Keeper, Bitcoin Keeper supports it well as well. Craig, does Sparrow supports it, but you need the USB NFC thingy, right?
You need the NFC thing, yeah. I mean, I'm actually I quite enjoy using it there. But, obviously I realize that not many people are going to often buy the separate NFC device, but it does work pretty well.
It is beyond me why Apple, out of all the players in the space, does not have NFC on their computers because, people tap shit and, like, Matt almost spit his beer. And I think we need it. Anyways.
Well, I mean, I think the only feedback I could give is that I think the Q probably needs an upgrade to its case. And I quite like the clear case. I think it's got that cypherpunk ethos to it. But, if you've used the Ledger Flex, and I know you have, Rob,
yeah,
it is a really nice piece of hardware to hold in your hand.
Yes.
Now, it's just not the same thing as a cold card, and I get that, but it is still a nice piece of hardware to hold in your hand.
Yeah. So we've been having these discussions with an industrial design firm we've been talking to, and it's so annoying because all of this is born out of trying to be clear, not frosted. It's kind of a funny problem.
Okay.
And it's like a full-on human perception issue. And we've tested this out and, with people and stuff. And it's so funny because when you do a clear, and we use polycarbonate, which is very hard plastic, right? It gives a nice feel. But if you don't frost the case, and it's just clear, it scratches and then it looks cheap. And it gives you that cheap feel. So we are considering frosting the case a little bit like we did with the Mark IV for future versions of the Q, and also for future versions of Mark V or whatever. We're also looking into tweaking that. There is a lot of conversations internally about that, but again, it's tricky, right? Ledger costs maybe $20-$30 inside of parts and material kind of thing, and they do it at a different scale than we do. We cost a lot more internally in a smaller scale. So the economics are tricky. We're essentially giving you 3-4 times more hardware in terms of value there than they do. But yeah, no, it is a criticism that is well taken, and we do want to fix it. It bothers me when people say, it feels cheap or whatever, but,
is, I guess, in other things related to that, I've had to do this with the Q a couple times. It's an easy fix. Occasionally I'll try and use the QR and it'll just say camera not read. And I have to take out the batteries and put the battery back in. I'm not sure if that's a connectivity thing or if there's something I could be doing to avoid.
Are you running latest?
Yeah. Well, I mean...
Right, no. Send us the QR and send us we want to repro that.
No, it's not... It's physically the device, the QR connection's loose or something. And I've had it happen because I have a couple Qs where I don't know, I could be doing... Maybe it's the QR. I'll send you the QR and I'll reproduce it and let you know. But
No, I want to reproduce that or find the problem.
I'll get the error message too. It's a unique error message. It feels weird.
Jesus, I have to be recording to get this kind of feedback.
But the fix is I just take out the batteries and put them back in, and it's totally fine.
No, I want to fix it.
Oh, I agree. You asked for it. Yeah.
See, I love this. We need people to participate in the product development.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what we should do. I should start a new podcast where we just invite people and we give each other feedback on the first product.
Product roadmap, open forum. Yeah.
Yes.
I think the other piece that makes the Q feel a little bit cheaper is the keyboard.
Yeah, the squishy keyboard.
I like that. The MK4 keyboard, it feels really nice in hand.
Yeah.
I don't get the same feel from the Q.
I wanted to license the BlackBerry keyboard and just put it there.
I've been sick.
But it's very tricky. So yeah, we are. That's also on the list of future versions to test. And so the keyboard, the plastic. What else? I mean, there's a bunch of things I want to change personally. My list is very long. Very long.
You're now signing descriptors, right? You're signing more data.
Yes.
When you do exports now, the descriptors are being signed.
Mm-hmm.
That's good. I like that. Everything should be signed.
Yeah, everything should be signed. Everything should be
It'd
signed.
be cool. Does that work for the QR too? If you're signing via the QR, does it give a signed payload? Could you do that so that you can know the QR is signed?
Can't remember. I have to check.
Maybe a BBQR spec for signed message return. That's probably part of the BBQR spec already, though. for signed messages, because you can just wrap the message that you're trying to send back in a signature.
The signed message, yes, but I can't remember if the detached signature, that's what we do for those. We'll go.
It'd be a cool option.
Yeah. I mean, even more than that, it would be amazing if there was an ephemeral handshake between the hardware wallet and the desktop wallet.
Yes.
Or the phone wallet. And then you can do like, a nice encrypted tunnel between the two. That's what a lot of the wallets that have proprietary software can do.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like Craig and you should talk about that. It sounds like a hardware wallet coordinator conversation.
I think we talked about this like years ago.
Yeah.
But it's not an easy problem. And then
no, not at all.
Yeah, I mean, obviously that's what the USB does, right? It sets up this encrypted tunnel, everything's signed back and forth. So most of the, not most, I stand corrected, I correct myself. Some of the hardware wallets have an encrypted tunnel and most do not.
Yes.
But, if you're sending QR codes back and forth, I don't know, does it matter as much to you then?
I mean, my paranoid self is always wants things to be signed, and signed in a way. See, my preference on this, just generally speaking, is the devices should be checking signatures, knowing the sender, essentially some HIFI, some HAL DIFI kind of thing. I don't want the users to be checking those signatures, because as a user, it's kind of, if your environment is already fucked, you could be like got a false positive too, right? So yeah, I mean,
it just feels a little. Is this really going to help? It's like you're going to point the QR code at the application. I mean, sure, if you point it at a different application and then that application then gets access, then you could maybe alleviate that issue. But it's like, do we not have better things to work on?
I don't know. I mean, we already have pretty amazing setup between the two, the hardware and the software. So like, kind of like looking for things to do here.
I've got plenty of things to do. I've got lots.
That's right.
All right, boys. Is there any other topics you guys want to address? Or
don't forget the boosts.
Oh, the boosts. Thank you, Rob.
Come on, Mr. Value for Value. I actually did a boost on this other podcast like 2 weeks ago, because I was going to be speaking at BitDevs in Philadelphia, Bitcoin John, and I donated them sats and they didn't even read the boost. So other shows out there skip the boosts.
I am just happy that, again, we've been PodConf disapproved, which is perfect. So I hope this episode was also maybe approved. Maybe we made it. I don't know. Well, Odell was here, so maybe we made it. We have a professional podcaster.
This is due to Rindell. We're PodConf disapproved by Rod Palmer.
Yes.
Aren't I the only one here that's PodConf disapproved?
I think so.
No, we are disapproved. I'm fully disapproved.
Yeah.
Why?
It said because we had Rindell on last show, so it's PodConf disapproved now.
We've always been disapproved. Yeah. We have never had a show that was approved.
I mean, Rob is definitely approved.
Yeah.
He has all the paraphernalia.
But that's his buying his approval. That doesn't count. Average Gary. Up next was great. Run your test net for CTV plus CSFS client. They're going to need to change that acronym, man. It's very hard to say it.
Yeah.
Has SV2 enabled branch 2. DB near 0. Pink money, fire, user 4, fire, wartime, mon, and not.
The mempool monkey.
Oh, right. Okay. btconboard, lots of emojis. Thanks, guys. Tech tip of the day. A free online cryptography course repository, Alfred Menezes, includes videos, slides, exercises, solutions, news, items. Go check out that. Go check out the show notes. As usual, we have pages and pages and pages and pages of show notes. All the details that we didn't cover on the show. I guess. Any final thoughts, Rob?
Final thoughts? just keep on building. If you're not building, just hang out, touch grass, spend time with family, make a family, get some sunlight. Summer's here. It's good vibes all around. And don't upgrade your Bitcoin node. If you're too confused about what's going to just hang out and chill. It's all going to be okay. Bitcoin's going to keep on rolling along.
Craig.
Don't have too much to add to that. Try not to get too worked up about the drama online. It will eventually pass in a way that everyone will be kind of okay with in some way. They will kind of find their little corner and they will have their tribe and things will figure themselves out. So don't get too upset about it. But there are some important issues that I touched on earlier. Those are issues which could do with some more attention. So I would definitely think a little bit more about that.
Mr. Odell.
To Craig's point, if you want to donate to the Samurai Legal Defense Fund, go to p2prights.org. And if you've tried Nostr in the past, or if you've never tried it before, consider downloading Primal in your favorite app store and joining us over there. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised at how far the app has come since you've last used it.
Guys, thank you so much for coming. This was fun, as usual. Craig made a lot of promises on features he's going to add. Rob is going to fix Miniscript. And guys, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Ciao.
Thanks for listening. For more resources, check the show notes. We put a lot of effort into them. And remember, we don't have a crystal ball, so let us know about your project. Visit bitcoin.review to find out how to get in touch.